Shalom, everybody. Shalom from Israel. This is Ronny Simon. I'd like to share with you a short message today, which is dealing with a very sensitive issue, and that will be treating the Israeli soldiers in the hands of Hamas. We know that they are dead and they are holding their dead bodies, and two other Israeli civilians that climbed the fences over into the Gaza Strip area willingly. Although both of them are mentally ill, they were also abducted by Hamas, and we do not know what happened to them. And this is just a test case to explain how sensitive is the state of Israel to the lives of the soldiers that we send to battle. We're responsible to bring them back, but not at all costs. Redeeming captives is a very important principle in the Jewish world. And that principle is something that the state of Israel also follows. A soldier needs to know if the country sends him to battle and he dies or is captured by the enemy, we will do whatever we can in order to redeem them and bring them back home safe and sound. The problem is that since our enemies also know that sentiment in Israel, they use that in order to kidnap Israeli civilians and Israeli soldiers to try to get their people free. Now, Israel was willing to pay a very high price. Let me give you one example. In July of 2006, a group of Hamas terrorists was crossing from Gaza through a tunnel into Israel's territory. They attacked an Israeli military post, killed two Israeli soldiers, injured one, and abducted a soldier by the name of Gilad Shalit. Some of you may have heard the name. Gilad Shalit was in Hamas's prison for nearly 5 years. We almost knew absolutely nothing about his condition. They released a video footage, but that was few years after he was captured by them. We had no idea about his condition, how is he treated. Nobody was able to see them or to see him. And therefore Hamas demanded Israel to free many of their captives. It was done by the Germans and the Egyptians that played a role of negotiators here. And after a few years of negotiations, we released 1,027 Hamas terrorists from Israeli jails and prisons for one Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit. There was some controversy in Israel as well, how much the price should be and how many people we should release to get our soldiers back. I know it sounds something that every country should do, to do whatever possible, but it puts us in a very sensitive position as well. In Operation Defensive Shield in 2014, Hamas's main goal was not to kill as many Israeli soldiers as possible, but to try to kidnap them, knowing that they're going to have a very valuable card and Israel will be willing to pay. And for that reason, something had to be done because there was a lot of public resistance to that. And right after Gilad Shalit was released from his prison, Israel appointed a committee that was led by a former Chief Justice by the name of Meir Shamgar to try to have some guidelines how in the future Israel is going to negotiate its soldiers, dead or alive, and what will be the key. How many people we're supposed to release for exchange of one Israeli soldier or two Israeli soldiers. So today the issue is on the table once again. Since Israel is assisting the Gaza with everything they need to fight the corona pandemic. And keep in mind that Israel supplies Gaza with almost everything. And that makes many Israelis very upset. We could get our soldiers back many years ago. We could maybe make that condition that if you don't free them, we will not supply with food. We're going to cut down electricity. We're going to stop sending in pharmaceutics and fuel. We can do that. The pressure on Hamas will be on such a level they will have to comply, they will have to surrender. We never do that. And that makes many Israelis quite upset, not understanding why the state is not using the leverage that we have over Hamas in order to free those soldiers. Yes, dead bodies, but still, these are Israeli boys and they need to come home and they need to have a proper burial in Israeli military cemeteries. So now the issue is on the table once again, and the question is, how much Israel is willing to pay this time? Well, based on that committee that was appointed after the Gilad Shalit deal, now there is a price that Israel is not willing to consider. Israel will not free Palestinian terrorists that have blood on their hands for Israeli dead bodies. If these were alive soldiers, that would be a consideration. But since they are dead, and this is very unpleasant to speak about that in such terms, but we have to face reality. And for that reason, Israel will not release any Palestinian terrorist that was accused and is doing time in Israeli prison for taking Israeli lives, not for Israeli dead bodies. It's amazing, but when Israel is arresting Palestinian terrorists, and they can come from every part, from Lebanon as Hezbollah members among the Palestinians, there is a whole legal procedure. They are being charged in the court of law. They have lawyers that can represent them. They get to meet with their families, and they're sent to jail. They can get almost all the rights and privileges like anybody else, including the families are compensated by the Palestinian authorities with thousands of shekels every month. So some of the aid that the world is sending to the Palestinians is to support the families of Palestinian terrorists. And some of them are willing to become terrorists because they know the money the families are going to get is much higher than they can make by working in the Palestinian territory. That's also a motivation for some of these youngsters to carry out acts of terror against Israelis. They can even have some high education, for goodness sake, in Israeli prisons, and who pays for that? Israeli taxpayers' money. When Israelis are abducted, and it happened with Hezbollah in Lebanon, we speak about soldiers and civilians, we know nothing about their condition. Zero information. They don't get to see a lawyer. They don't get to be interviewed by anybody to know what's their condition. Well, I think that we should be proud that that's how we treat our people. Human lives do matter. Israeli lives matter maybe more than of our enemies. It's not me saying that. Look how they treat their own people. If one of ours is worth more than 1,000 of theirs, it says something about the way that we value our soldiers and value our civilians. So now it's on the table once again. Once again, negotiations are taking place. Once again, Israel refused to use the leverage that we have over the Gaza Strip and Hamas over there. We could have gotten these boys back home long time ago by doing very simple things. And this is almost obvious. If you don't send their dead bodies back, you won't get any food. It's our prerogative. We never do that. So you can hear some frustration in my voice, representing the sentiment of many Israelis. But now at least there is a certain formula which is by law. For dead soldiers who will not free Palestinian terrorists that killed Israelis. We can maybe negotiate the release of others that were just assisting, but not those that caused the death of Israelis. It's still premature. We don't know if it's going to materialize, but for the first time, the other party is negotiating knowing they cannot blackmail us anymore. We're going to hold our ground. And there was a certain key. How many of them were willing to release to get the dead bodies of Israeli soldiers? Once again, it's unpleasant to deal with those issues by using those terms. It's heartbreaking for the families and many Israelis. But enough should be enough. And the other side should know that by kidnapping Israeli soldiers or civilians, and they did in the past, they're not going to be blackmailing the state of Israel again. So we'll see how this is going to develop and if it's going to materialize. But the sad part, and this is really frustrating, Israel is not using the leverage that we could in order to bring those boys back home. And this is under a government which is very, very, well, let's say more assertive in a political way, a very right-wing government. And one would wonder how come that this government is not doing whatever possible, and there are possibilities to bring these boys home. Why do we need to surrender time after time, inviting more pressure in the future? Well, this is the broadcast for today, and until the next time, be safe, and may the God of Israel richly bless you all. Thank you.